people. Before we get to Tracii Guns, I want to thank FU Tone for making this happen for all of us. That is why this happened. Thank you, Adam FU Tone. And with that, Tracii Guns. How you doing, Tracii?
I'm doing good. I got the my booster shot last night. I'm feeling a little like.
Oh, okay. All right.
I'm good. I'm present, I think.
We've done things under different feelings in our youth, right? We've learned to navigate.
Yeah,
that's for sure. Feeling okay?
Yeah, I'm feeling all right.
Yeah, dude. I mean, I want to dive in. I got the advanced copy of the album. It's fucking crushing.
Thank you, man.
So, how long have you been writing, recording this for?
Well, what was I doing when the label kind of put the hammer down during the pandemic at some time? They're like, yo, we need this record. And I was like, yeah, I know. And so I guess I want to say like March of 2020, I wrote Let You Down, which we released in April of 2020. It's like a first single because we thought I thought I'd have the record done like, in 6 months from then.
Yeah.
And I didn't, and I couldn't. So it was just, the writing process was easy and short, but then navigating, how are we going to get everybody to record? How are we going to get everything to work? That took some time. And that's how Adam Hamilton ended up playing drums on the album, because ultimately he does a lot of engineering work with me and writing, all kinds of stuff. Yeah. We do a lot of stuff together. But he had the studio with his drum set up ready to go, and we couldn't have Scott go there because Adam's daughter has a really immune compromised, her immune system's compromised. So this was during the pandemic, so we had to just do it that way. And then so that's what really took the longest was, getting, once the drums are done, then I go back and I re-record all the guitars, then it gets to Johnny and he does bass, then Ace does guitar. And then finally Phil the whole time's been working on lyrics with his writing partner, Mitch Davis. And then that's a whole brand new process, because they're, normally, they kind of write through email and stuff, but then Phil will go to New York where Mitch Davis lives and they record in his studio. But we didn't have that luxury this time. Phil had to stay put. Everybody had to stay put. So Adam and Mitch basically taught Phil how to build a vocal booth in his house.
Oh my! And to sing through some of these riffs, and he cuts through. That's not an easy job. They're like fucking Zeppelin riffs on this thing, esque riffs.
Absolutely.
He's cutting through and find Let You Down. There are these there's all different tempos, and this whole record reminds me of Scorpions or Zeppelin, there's all these different colors.
Absolutely.
But he's finding pockets like, how the fuck you singing through that? Because you could get lost in that.
Oh yeah. I mean, that's why they're a great team, and they've worked on all the lyrics and melodies since we got back together. Mitch Davis has been, Phil Lewis's secret weapon and companion and buddy, and they really bring it to the next level, don't they? Jesus. But that being said, we're leaving Phil on his own basically to do the recording part of it, Yeah. And he was real receptive to how to do it and how to get the room right and what equipment he needed and, all these things, so we got a crash course in vocal recording, to do it the right way. And all the while having to sing with emotion and, put the message forth, whatever the message is. But, Phil did come across very emotional on the record, which is
totally.
It's such an important thing to happen. I mean, it's the difference between making a record sound expensive and cheap. Is that emotion that comes through in the recording. So, I mean, it took a solid year once the fire got under my ass, to get it done. And there was no real pretense, for the writing. I just kind of wrote whatever came out. That's why there's a pretty decent variety of, rock and roll styles on the album, but it ended up really great. It really did.
And it fits though. It fits. It's like you have Zeppelin, then you have like Bad Luck Charm. It's like manic depression or so. I mean, your own, like it's wild that like there's not been a rock record in a long time with all those colors. I don't think the little kids. This is a big man's record. I mean, I know Zeppelin could have made a big man's record in their 20s, but it's weird because me and Jeff were talking when you're a kid. You're so stupid. You just make arrangements crazy and you don't even think about it. And the singer sings through. But as you get older, you try to make sense of the stupidity of the band room, and it can almost inhibit you. Like Too Fast for Love was probably just them. They didn't know any better. We'll make that part go fucking 10 times.
So cool. Yeah, so cool. So I try to keep that innocent in the songwriting, because I do recognize what it is that I don't like about modern music starting in 1985, the kind of when things started getting what's a good word, simplified, a beat and a good chorus is going to sell the song, right? That's and it's proven. I mean, that does work. But from an artistic point of view, I started writing music right away when I was a kid because that was the joy. Like that's the creative thing. That's the addiction for me, is that, so I always take my time when I'm writing the music because our music always comes first in this band, so I write something that I want to hear or something that I feel is missing or my record collection or something, so.
And it sounds like this felt like fucking old Scorpion Zepp. Like, oh my God, this is like, just amazing. And Questlove said something great in his creative book. He said, when we were kids, you heard something on the radio and you played your version of what you thought it sounded like.
That's right.
So that out of the gate, the creativity is there. You're as opposed to like even me, if I want to learn, this song, I'm going to just, Nikki's bass is tuned to D. I'm going to, that's the lick. There's no creativity in the learning anymore.
Right. And I do give guitar lessons, and I always explain that to, the guys that are writing and stuff, is it's like, you don't need to go learn other people's music note for note. I mean, you can if you want to, because, it gives you a feeling and it's good to know. But I always think I benefited in my writing from having a horrible ear. Like, I can hear, especially when I was younger, hear music, want to copy it, but I could never figure things out.
I get it. Yeah. As a kid, I songwriting is my thing. I was in this band Blackboard Jungle, but it was because Ernie Latanzio could figure out Phantom of the Opera note for note by Iron Maiden, and I'd be so depressed that I couldn't fucking come close to that.
I could never do that. I could do it now, but it would take some time, and it just, as you get older, things, you recognize things easier. But when I was a kid, and even into my 20s and early 30s, man, I was on my own musically. All right, what do I got? What am I going to do? What is my brain here? I remember, here's a really fast story. When we were 12, Slash was at a rehearsal, at our friend David Pusey's house in the garage. And I had just thought I learned Heartbreaker by Zeppelin. And I played it all chromatically, like da 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 da. And he just looks at me and goes, "That's not how it goes. It goes like this." Yeah. And I was like, yeah. And that's just typical me. That's the way my brain just hears things. It just hears what it wants to. And then I try to transpose it on the guitar, but I've never been good at it. So anyways, but that leads to writing kind of original sounding stuff, I suppose,
Yeah.
And I've learned to embrace it more as the years go on.
Slash almost looks like that kid on the block that would just school you. You know what I mean? Just the scary kid that was, you ain't doing it right, man. You know what I mean?
Yeah. He was 37 when we were 12.
Yeah. Just fucking schooling everybody. Because I mean, dude, you guys even had just to go back, Electric Gypsy. I call it the Hollywood groove. You guys in GNR wrote something that we all, almost like the Stones have a sound. That's a groove that when you got to Hollywood, we all did terribly at the Coconut Teaser. Imitating it was anybody that imitated it was just terrible, and it was just like you go off. But you guys and the big three could do it right. I mean,
well, it is interesting. There's something about the rhythm style that Slash and I kind of made. And I don't know exactly what it is, but it has that chukka in it, you know, like
It's something, right? I call it the Hollywood groove. It's like,
and it's just, I think that's the one thing that we didn't think of or process, you know, in a way. But I have a feeling it comes a lot from the vibe we got when we were kids listening to like the live Aerosmith record. You know, there was so much swagger in that album. And we did grow up, you know, on live albums, Peter Frampton, Song Remains the Same, stuff like that, Hendrix. That those guys really had like this sort of funk right hand, you know, and not to play funk, but just that little bit of sway in the right hand. And you know, and I did notice that, you know, right away when both of our first records came out, and then even more so on like Cocked and Loaded, you know, there's just like a thing that happens, you know, like this kind of feel.
It is. And you walk down a Hollywood rehearsal room and everybody would be trying to emulate that, with just, it just wasn't right.
But I thought that, you know, the thing that was really cool about, you know, when they finally put out a record, I thought Adler really accentuated that groove.
Oh God, yeah.
You know, he brought it to this just like such a sexy, you know, groove. And I always really admired that about him, because, you know, I played with Adler in GNR, you know, toward the end before I left. And he wasn't a great drummer, but he had a great feel, you know, and he had this definitely, you know, I always just call him Cheesecake because of that Aerosmith song Cheesecake. He just reminds me of that song Cheesecake. I don't know why. But, you know, he has this cheesecake way of swinging. And it was so important on that record, that Appetite for Destruction. And it really accentuates what you're talking about, is that groove, that Hollywood groove.
Yeah. Is it stupidity? Is it not stupid? It's just perfect. And it was a sound like England's had its sound, that when you got to this is the sound, and every band's emulating this. And then to grow, you have so many different sounds. Like the one thing I really love about this new album, there's just this Rover Zeppelin sludge on a lot of songs. Like this one, Physical Itch. It even starts, you think you're going to an upbeat song, and it fucking comes in grinding you over. It's so, what is that grinder? What's that's Scorpion.
It's just, you know, really the correct use of dynamics, right? You know, people I think have the tendency to think of dynamics as loud and soft, you know, but in dynamics is also, you know, speed changes and tempo, you know, things to where the tempo stays the same, but the groove changes, you know, either it's double time, half time, you know, straight time, whatever. And that's something I always really dug when really heavy bands came out, like, you know, post Pantera era, you know, they really made use of that halftime, you know, coming out of it like a fast riff. It's like a trick. Like, hey, here we are, we're fucking kicking your ass. And all of a sudden they, you know, they shift down, you know, and that dynamic, you know, to be psychological and physiological about it.
Yeah.
Music kind of is most comfortable when it's at your sitting heart rate, you know, or if you're dancing at your dancing heart rate, right? And your body kind of coexists with the beat, with the rhythm and frequencies in general.
Dude, I DJ. My day job is DJ. I live here. Yeah.
So you know. So when you take something like, let's say 120 beats per minute, which is double of 60 heartbeats a minute, well, that's a comfortable rate for people to listen to music at. So if the song's clipping along at 120 and then you change the rhythm down to 60, it's still super comfortable, but it creates a little bit of tension in the body, you know. So there's a lot of shit that goes into making good music, man.
Well, you're making, I mean, dude, how do you, I mean, the fire goes out for everybody. You hear uninspired, and it just does. I'm so like, how do you keep your fire so fucking lit? I know my fire's lit, but I never made it. So I still gotta, but how do you keep it so fucking lit and in love with the guitar and just so?
Well, I mean, it separates the real guys from the guys that want to be real guys. I mean,
Jizzy Pearl came on here and said there's very few, and he named you, that you were the name that he named of guys that are lifers that are still getting better. He named you.
yeah, I mean,
love Jizzy.
I think that's it, is it's like never resting on your laurels. But, you know, when I get in that way where I'm not being productive, I get angry, you know, like I need to create something, you know, I need to do something. So that's what I do. I don't worry about bills and shit like you're supposed to, you know. I worry about creating music, you know, and that's how I measure my self-worth, you know, personally. Is like, what have I created lately? What have I, you know, how have I impressed myself? You know, how have I done something like that? You know, so I'm really stupid, you know. I mean, it's like I just kind of, you know, avoid certain areas of life, but that's the way that I am. It's the way my brain works, you know, and it has its benefits, but it has its deficits, you know, of course. But when it comes to the music, I feel good about what LA Guns has done in the past 4 or 5 years, for sure.
Yeah, and the hard thing about creating great new music is I think people, the one thing that's hard is people have to tie memories to the music, their own personal experiences to your new songs. And that even the way you've trickled these songs out, it's fun tying some times and things to the songs. I think that's a big part of the listening experience with something great like this.
Well, I think you're right. And I think that, you know, I can brag about how great the music is all day long, but, you know, they're not great songs without a great vocalist and great lyrics, you know?
Yeah.
And that's where Phil is just a superstar to me. You know, it's just, he delivers, man.
Oh, yeah.
You know, on the same emotional level that I'm trying to deliver on. And it glues together, and it feels good and it sounds good. And, you know, I could write the same music with other people and people wouldn't, you know, fawn over it the way they do. You know, Phil and I have a unique chemistry that works. And I think that's part of the addiction too. You know, I can't wait to write something because I can't wait to hear what he's going to do with it, you know? And it just keeps it really creative and really healthy. And it keeps our relationship healthy when we're being productive, especially during a pandemic, you know. It's like,
oh, well, I mean, you guys made magic. Springsteen said something that was really smart. Many things are real, but he said a real great band, like a relationship, 1 + 1 = 3 or 4.
That's right.
Somehow just this cosmic thing between you two where no matter how great you are, it's greater than you two when you do it.
I agree 100%, you know. And, you know, one of the most bitter pills to swallow as a massive ego lead guitarist type guy from the 80s is that 99% of the people in the audience that buy your records, they're not guitar players. So they don't really give a shit, how great your solo is. You know, they appreciate it, you know, but they relate to the lyrics and the song and the groove, you know. And I'm really conscious of that, you know, the song, a good song is a good song. It's a good song. A shitty recording of a good song is still a good song. A great recording of a shitty song is still a shitty song. So the songs are really that important. You know, they really, really are.
Yeah. Wow, man. It's and getting it, you have all these new cool, dude, I love your love of the guitar, man. Every day you're posting something, you just go, this fucking guy loves the guitar, and I love that. Do you think you had something interesting on your Instagram about new equipment versus old equipment? I talk with Jeff about this all the time because he says, if Hendrix were born today, do you think he'd be reaching for new technology or old technology?
Well, the creative mind uses all the tools that are available. You know, I mean, that's you know, the professional artist uses, you know, what's available. And for me, you know, it's allowed the creative process to go faster. You know, it's you know, you see that room with all that gear I have, and it's like, I don't pull all those amps down every time I record a guitar track and go, which one sounds better? And, you know, like I used to, you know, and it's just painstaking. But, you know, with things like the Head Rush, you know, I know what sounds I want, you know, I know what I'm going for most of the time. So the experimentation to get that sound that time is cut way down. by being able to have confidence in a piece of digital equipment that's been maxed out to a way where, you know, the audio quality is top level, you know.
Totally.
And a lot of times, you know, I find myself trying to degrade the quality because it's so present or so clear or so clean that you actually have, like, one thing that drives me nuts, bass sounds way too good these days. You know, bass guitar.
I agree with you. I play bass. I hate that fake bass distortion. Geezer Butler and Getty distorted it with their hands.
Yeah, it's nuts, you know. And a lot of times, you know, I'll get bass tracks coming back from people, and it's so big and so perfect and so round and piano-y, which is great for a ballad, you know, or something like that. But still, I prefer putting a microphone in front of an SVT and having some guy, you know, do it, you know, just because then you have more shit to cut out, you know.
Oh,
when you get all these transient bass frequencies, you can really carve in there, you know. You can go, oh, this is getting in the way of everything. Oh, this can be accentuated. Where guitar, you got to be really careful, you know. You got to stay, you know, like that. But bass has so many qualities, you know. It has top end, you know.
Yes.
And so if I get a track that comes in where it's just a full spectrum, clean, it leaves no room for even the bass drum, the snare drum, the guitar, the lead vocal. It just takes everything. Same with a big, massive, you know, distorted guitar. It does the same thing. It just takes everything out of the mix.
Right.
So, you know, when it comes to analog, I really feel that digital reproduces bass better, but I feel that analog records bass better.
That makes sense. See, so it's a mixture of everything, because I just don't think Hendrix would be reaching, and it was 69, so he played a 69 Strat. He'd be playing some new guitar, you know what I mean? But you're right. I agree with you with the bass. I actually just bought a Ampeg, the 15 little cube, you know, thing, just so I could fucking drive it, just like make it work. You know what I mean?
And that's the thing. I mean, and you know, I'm lucky enough to, I have pretty much all the gear that I like, you know, whatever it is. Yeah. But I'll tell you something, you know, I play through some little vintage 15-watt tube amp. Sounds, to me, it sounds fucking unreal. Yeah. But then I plug in my head rush through my full rig and I'm like, wow. You know, I'm like, Jesus, this sounds insane. You know what I mean? It's just, there's more than two, but you know, there's so many great things that reproduce the sound of an electric guitar, an electric bass, an electric violin. So to limit yourself, that's fine. But if you're interested in more colors and more art and, you know, doing it, and you know, everything's available now. And the other thing, one thing I say too is, you know, it's 2021. If you're making a piece of digital equipment that sounds like shit, you're doing it wrong, because everything pretty much sounds good.
Yeah.
It really does.
Wow. And all the colors you talk about, that's what this record is so cool. There's so many colors and shapes. You're taking that. When I say Scorpions, it doesn't sound like Scorpions, but you have those zoo moments, those Zepp, like, wow, this is like, I'll be listening to this a year from now. This isn't just like, you know.
Well, it's kind of like, you know, if LA Guns is, you know, associated with sleazy sex, well, like our newer music is like adult sex. You know, it still has that. But
it's not too adult. It's fucking grunt. You're like UFO adult. You know what I mean?
Yeah. That's what I mean. It's just, it's nice and big and adult and dirty.
Yeah. And dude, what's it like to have your own pedal? Like as a kid, I know now, but as a kid, would you ever dreamed you have your own pedal?
No.
I mean, we'll put a link in the chat. It sounds so cool. I mean, dude, could you fucking 15-year-old, you know, you truly have your own pedal?
Yeah. I mean, because I'm trying to think, you know, there was such a standard pedal set, you know, when I was a young teenager, you know.
Yeah, the MXR Distortion Plus, those green, everybody's room, smoke some weed.
That's it.
You know what I mean?
That was it. So like, you know, never even thought about pedals, you know. I mean, every now and then someone would, you know, walk up and say, and have like a, you know, a small stone phase shifter or something, you know, something electro harmonics
or whatever Randy Rhoads, and everybody wanted Randy Rhoads.
That was it. Yeah. And that's where I was at, you know, by the time I was 16, 17, that was it, you know, stereo chorus, you know, the whole thing. But yeah, I mean, it's different now. It's not so much that I dream about those things anymore. It's that I'm an older adult and I have great relationships with, you know, mechanical engineers, electrical engineers, and pedal builders and people that have the same passion that I do. So they're ideas that kind of come together between in relationships, you know, and the pedal is actually not something original that I came up with. It was the builder's thing. He had this little pedal that he sent me a few years ago that in a pinch, I could plug it into anything and it sounded like my guitar sound.
Okay. Wow.
And so a few months ago, I came into a bunch of dough and I didn't want to spend it. I wanted to invest it. And so I called up some friends like this guy, Mark, Spherical. He's Bulgarian. I said, hey man, you want to do something fun? You know, and he said, yeah. So, you know, I spent some bucks there and we came up with a design and now, of course, because we're a tiny company, you know, we had to shut sales down so we could build them and then we'll open up again when those are built and then like that. So it's really fun. It's another creative process, you know?
Yeah. Can people pre-order it or anything or?
Yeah. And I'm going to be doing more of these different kinds of things. And they're just based off of either things I used when I was younger or, you know, things that I think aren't available, you know, and that's kind of the things that I use or things that I have used in the past, kind of like my signature guitar with Kramer, the Gunstar. You know, it's like a dream guitar for me. But it would have really been a dream guitar for me in my 20s. You know what I mean? Like if I had that guitar, I would have never played anything else, you know? But so the people that bought it, you know, they have that same passion for that style of guitar and they do it, but I don't play that guitar all the time now, you know, because now, you know, I'm into vintage guitars, you know, I'm into, you know, classic kind of things because that's my hobby.
Yeah. But it's an exciting guitar. It's funny because I went to NAMM and you saw all the kids with Jeff. They weren't reaching for vintage guitars. They were reaching for fluorescent guitars shaped like that.
Yeah.
And what's funny, I told you I DJ. The only thing that's crossed from my rock world really into my DJ world is your guitar and Little Nas.
Right.
That was insane. I was Tracii Guns. Whoa. Just because it's so exciting to him. Yeah, I mean,
I've always been good at bringing people together, man.
That's great, man. Wow.
That guitar looks fantastic. You know, I mean, if you went in a guitar shop and you wanted something flashy, but not too flashy, that's the one, you know, it's like, it's cool.
Yeah. And what do you think with this record? I saw your band, I forget the name of it, with Riley that you sent at the Troubadour.
Killing Machine.
Yes. What do you think about having to go there to come here? Because I feel like you've done all these things. I've watched you through the years. And this feels like it's all sorted out with you and Phil. And this is just such a perfect statement of everywhere you've had to go to get here.
Right. I mean, you know, that's the kind of the caveat of being young. I remember, you know, Jimmy Page after Zeppelin, you know, he's my hero, you know, in every way. But musically, he really struggled, in my opinion, since the demise of John.
I did love The Firm. The Firm was pretty good.
Yeah, I just listened to both Firm records the other day again.
Yeah.
You know, trying to accept it, and it doesn't touch me, you know, and it's not a personal thing, you know, it's the way your body reacts to music. So when you do start young, he started young, you know, Eddie Van Halen started young, you know, and he'll tell you he's not that, he would have told you, he wasn't that fond of the first few records. He really liked that big adult sound of the Sammy era, the production, you know, and he really felt that, like, you know, that's where he had graduated to. So, you know, you go through things to get to what, you know, you think at the time, but as an artist, your opinion changes minute to minute.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, that is just one of the horrors of having a more creative mind, is that, you know, something you don't like 10 minutes ago, all of a sudden is the greatest thing in the world, you know?
Yeah.
But for me, you know, like you said at the very beginning of the interview, that I'm not just a blues guy. And I started as a blues guy. I think every great rock guitar player has to be a blues guy. But then, I got into a lot of other styles based on blues, based on classical music. So, you know, with the heavier stuff, that definitely has a more classical influence. And then the rock and roll stuff, or the hard rock, or the Scorpions, or the Zeppi, that's like a mixture of, you know, a little bit of classical, a lot of blues, a lot of distortion, a lot of
yeah.
you know. But like doing things like Sunbomb and Killing Machine, that allows me to be, you know, pure metal.
Yeah,
because,
yeah.
You know, there's some badge of honor that goes along with making pure metal records. You know, it's like yeah, I feel good about myself. You know.
But that when you get to that grind, I was listening to these grinders when they come in like a fucking steamroller. It feels like the songs are like this wheel going. Woo. Like I feel like that is there, but not like that. You know what I mean? It's synthesized in some way that it just happens.
Right. Yeah, it's like if, let's say that I'm only influenced by Jimmy Page and Keith Richards and Joe Perry, for example. Well, you would know what you were going to get. You know, I mean, you would know from record to record to be consistent, and it would sell millions and millions of records because it would be defined, and people like their bands to be musically defined.
Yeah.
These days, you know. You know, the Beatles, Stones, stuff like that. Those days, people wanted variety, you know.
Yeah.
That's why I always like, you know, we talk about the Pumpkins, about those two records. Melancholy lost me a little bit, but the two records before it, I really felt had a great blend of diversity, you know, one sound, but diversity, you know, like in the songwriting.
Yeah.
And that's the most attractive thing to me. I like to listen to albums, you know, I mean, you know, it's like Frank Black. He has one song I love. I wish he had an album of songs I love, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, you know, when I write, I'm thinking about an album, not thinking about a song.
That's how we grew up. Yeah.
That's it.
You know, wow. And this is total off the subject, but I know you love Randy Rhoads, and I have to ask every what do you think was the Randy Rhoads jump from Quiet Riot to the Ozzy songs? Someone like you that gets the psychology of music, dude. Slick Black Cadillac's good, but it is not Revelation Mother.
Yeah, it's not Revelation Mother.
What is the jump that this guy makes in like 6 months? How does he turn himself inside out?
I think it was, you know, his unknowing all of a sudden being thrown into being compared to Black Sabbath, you know, and it's a subconscious thing where he probably never really listened to Sabbath that much. I mean, obviously he heard Sabbath before he did.
Yeah.
But he gets in there and he's a musician. So he's like, shit, what am I up against here? What am I doing? You know, what do Ozzy's fans expect? You know, how can I do that? And he always had the technique, you know, he always had the knowledge of diminished chords and diminished scales and minor scales and harmonic minor scale, you know, all these really great things that he did so uniquely. But I think, you know, Bob Daisley was a huge factor.
Oh God, yes.
Bob Daisley and Randy wrote that stuff.
That's true.
So there's a rumor that I don't know what to believe. Nikki Sixx told me that Randy played him a cassette during the Quiet Riot years of Diary of a Madman, the song. And I'm like, I don't think so, man. You know, because while Randy may have had the intro written, you know, which I found out later was actually based off of an Austrian piece of music, which I've heard, and they used it in some horrible Hitler documentary. But I heard it, I was like, oh, and I asked Rudy, I go, hey, Rudy, is Randy? And he goes, yeah. So that process between Quiet Riot to Blizzard of Oz was a lot of soul searching. You know, okay, now I'm wearing a black vest with spikes. Now I'm playing metal, I'm playing Iron Man, Children of the Grave, live. What do I do? And I'm switching from a fucking PV amp to a Marshall amp.
Yeah, okay.
Which is a massive upgrade. It's just like, whoa. So I think his time alone playing with the Marshall, with whatever riff ideas he had, you know, finding out how interesting the tube Marshall feedback was at high volume. I think that really made an impact on the way he approached recording the guitars in general on those two albums, because they're loud. You know, Riot records, they don't come across as loud.
This is my favorite answer to this question ever. I think you're really,
Well, I mean, that's my best guess. You know, I never even met Randy, but he seemed to be a smart guy and a nice guy. and obviously a musically educated guy at a really young age.
Yeah.
And when you're nice and you have a good disposition, you generally kind of go out of your way to be a people pleaser.
Yeah.
So he got this great opportunity with Ozzy, and I think he wanted to impress Ozzy more. I think he wanted to impress Sharon. I think that he really maxed it out, which also says that when it got toward the end, before he died, when he was really having, kind of a struggle with like, do I stay in this band or do I go and pursue what I want to pursue? It shows you that he was really trying to please Ozzy for those, couple years, but then every every people pleaser person gets to an end of like, okay, I pleased you. Okay, I need to move on, kind of a thing. And I think that's probably really true for Randy, because his interests in music were different. And I don't know what they were. Right. I mean, obviously he loved Mick Ronson, we know that, and Gary Moore and Leslie West and things like that. But I think he also had such a vast understanding of music when he was young that
growing up with his mom, growing up in the store,
So he had so much more music to explore in his life other than just being a rock guitarist, and I find that the guys that aren't trying to be guitar heroes that have other interests in life are the ones that kind of become guitar heroes.
That's amazing. Yeah.
The ones that they're like, I really care about what I'm doing, but I'm thinking about something else.
That was the people pleasing thing being one through lots of therapy, makes lots of sense. Wow. Yeah. Final question. I was thinking about you coming in from Denmark. I know myself, I did, 10 years in Hollywood, but what's it like you go through Hollywood and there's so many different versions of you as you pass. I know a lot's gone so many of the same places. What does that feel like when you come back in and have so many memories? I mean, you and your generation changing the game, making kids move out. What does it feel like when you pass places?
It's really sad.
Okay.
It's really, really sad to come back to LA when I've been in Denmark for, 2 months at a time. And I do that like 3 times a year now because we live in both places. So when I come back here, especially after the riots, then the pandemic, things like that, where I see them, erecting new buildings out of the rubble of something that was already magic, was already fixed. It didn't need to be fixed, and then I see the spray paint. I see massive homeless camps, of Hollywood. And it's not even just my musical period. It's when I was a kid, Santa Monica Boulevard, there's this little store called Propinquity that people like Elton John used to be seen in, things like that. My parents would talk about it. Oh, Elton John was over there, and I hung out with the Eagles over here. Linda Ronstadt used to hang out here. That's how I grew up. And same with Slash. His parents were actually involved in the music business to some extent. So we kind of had these surroundings of the satin jackets and really cool thing when we were young teenagers.
Wow.
All these restaurants and buildings and beautiful things, and it's really broken here. And not I can't speak for the rest of the country, but California is really supposed to be up on things. We're supposed to be really progressive and wealthy and all this stuff, man. This city is broken. It's broken.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. Yeah, when people, you see some of the, I said, our generation used to shoot up on Melrose. Now everybody's shooting up people on Melrose. That's the big switch from when we, were in.
And there's no police presence either. Nobody wants to be a cop here.
Yeah.
It's too scary, and then, then we have, like I said, my older son, who's going to be 13, him and his mom, they moved out of Hollywood. They moved, north because he was scared to drive by the homeless camps.
Yeah,
and when we come here, he's always, we drive by, he's like, Dad, lock your door, and it's more, he's scared of the mystery of not understanding, like he's really scared of like, what are those people? Who are they? What do they
Well,
do?
it hit Mad Max level now. It's hit like a Mad Max movie,
It has. So, you know, and Denmark is such a, what's the word? It's such a practical country. It doesn't have lunatics on the left or the right, and if it does, they're very few.
Right.
Everybody's in the middle. Like
Yeah,
everybody,
yeah.
straddling the line. Everybody works. Everybody's educated. There's no bumps in the road. All the lights work.
Right. That's
there's
cool.
no chemicals in food.
Yeah.
And you pay a lot of taxes, and you get a lot for your tax money.
It's awesome.
So it's really weird living in those two completely separate places.
Yeah.
And I do love it here. I mean, I have a great house and I have a great view, and I write half my music here now, and and all that. But it's not. It doesn't. I can't like drive by places and go, oh man, that was awesome, because most of them are gone.
It is true. There was I think everything changes with time, but there really was, even when I got there, still that taste of the 70s and Irv's Burgers and Hollywood Boulevard.
Right.
And it just feels like hotels, so many hotels, but what are people coming to visit if the hotels swallow up? The hotel is swallowing where you were supposed to go to, you know what I mean?
That's right. And like a lot of these places, I just look out the window and I can see the construction, and there's been buildings going on for like 10 years now, that they're priced out of affordability. So they're empty on purpose. You know what I mean? Like we have investors here that just want to own the Hollywood land, and they have to build a building on it, and they have to charge a price.
Yeah.
So, living in a community like that is really bizarre. It's like, who okayed that? Like,
Yeah.
who said that was okay to do that? So, and I'm not the kind of person that easily turns a blind eye. I mean, I have to on certain things, but it's not easy for me, because it upsets me.
Yeah. I mean, you are mayor of this thing that just, to us, you know what I mean? That just, and haven't seen it all, it must be wild. So it's like, it must be so wild coming in from Denmark, like you say, just seeing this.
It's weird. So, when Eddie died, I really felt like LA rock and roll died. I really felt that was the final straw. Like that was it, thank God for Joe Bonamassa living in LA sometimes. It's like, okay, we got one, and Slash, and, we all live here. I think Nuno lives up the street, but I've never seen him up here. And like, to me, that's what LA was, you had.
I never cried when a celebrity died. I laugh, but I did cry when he died, because it was my youth. I felt like that was my Elvis. That was just fun and nothing but Van Halen. People would just put their head through a wall at a party screaming Van Halen, drinking beer.
That's right. I mean, it's like he was a human being, but he was also an icon. And when I say icon, I mean it literally. He was a symbol of, rock guitar at that next level, even through Dimebag. You know what I mean? Dimebag was extraordinary guitar player. But Eddie Van Halen was an extraordinary figure, character, inventor.
Like you say, technician, artist. I mean, I think his stripes are like Basquiat, just as important. Like you see in the airports, he changed. Just what did he not change?
That's right. So like for me, that was kind of messed up, because I mean, I hadn't hung out with him in years, but through Adam Raver, Adam was still close with him, and we would talk, and he signed an article I wrote about him, or interviewed about him for me a couple of years ago. And so we kept close, but when he finally died, it was just like, wow. I was in Denmark and I was at a rehearsal, and I instantly had to go to the bathroom to puke and shit simultaneously.
I get it. Yeah.
My ex texted me, Eddie died, 10 o'clock at night in Denmark. I'm like, I just didn't say anything, trying to play. I go, I'll be right back, guys. Sick all night.
Yeah.
All night I was sick. And I haven't ever had a reaction to the loss of a person like that, and I hope I don't ever again.
It symbolized a lot, man,
Yeah. And I see Wolfgang, Wolfman, I see him out there being such an ambassador for himself and, putting the music out there and trying to, stand on his own 2 feet. And I see people trying to tear him down, and it just says so much about society.
People just, yeah.
I mean,
I saw him open for Guns up here in San Jose, and he crushed it. It was great.
Crushed it. And he's a great guy.
And I love that it's not a van. He's got its sound. It's modern. Kids love it. I mean, it's cool.
He does his thing. But, but what kind of adults are in this country where they go on social media and speak directly to him and try to tear him down? What kind of adults is that? Like, what kind of society?
But he's kind of killer with his reactions back. He said some funny shit. He was good.
Hey, just like his mom and dad.
That's awesome, man. Well, Tracii, I can't wait for Checkered Past. Everybody's got to get it November 12th. Man, I really want to thank you for your time. This is one of my favorite ones. And thanks for all the insight, man. And hang out so I could say goodbye. Say goodbye to everybody, please.
See ya.